Back here in Las Vegas where the Cavaliers lead at 53-42. Bucks Nation, you've got yourself a new starting center. Myles Turner, congratulations on the new deal. Congratulations on what was a great year as a member of the Indiana Pacers. Channing Frye, Jared Greenberg, we'll hear from Dennis Scott as well. So Bucks fans heard you speak for the first time yesterday. People reacting all over the internet about
of course.
your introductory comments. But before we get to any of that, first thing, when Channing Frye learned that you were going to be with us today, he goes, what is Myles going to wear? Right? Like, you're most intrigued by the.
You're not on
fit.
Indiana anymore, so the style, you got to go with Giannis. You're going to be in tech fits all day, buddy.
No, that. You know, it's the style going to transfer wherever I go now. You know, I'm a little 90s big, got my FUBU on, so it's a little different.
I appreciate it.
I like it. What has the last couple weeks been like for you?
Bro, it's a whirlwind. I personally haven't had much of a time to process much. You know, I did my free agency. This is my first time I've been a restricted free agent. You know, I've always just done extensions. So getting a peek behind the curtain, what the process is. You know, I was on vacation when I did all this and didn't get much of a vacation, but, you know, it was all worth it at the end, you know.
What was that like? And obviously, Indiana and Milwaukee have a little beef.
Of course.
And then when they called, said, "Hey, what's up?" What was that like? Were you like, "Oh, is this serious?" Or is this like, what is this opportunity like? And how did it make you say yes?
Yeah, I mean, I was damned if I did, damned if I didn't in the situation. You know, that's kind of the way I looked at it. You know, the negotiations in this business, you know, it's just it's a part that the casual fan doesn't get to see. But I will say, definitely, you know, you're going to take whatever storyline you want, you know, with this. And we have this heated rivalry. So no matter what I say, it's going to get twisted into whatever they wanted to be to fit the narrative. So, and there was no love lost. When I went through this entire situation, I just went and made the best decision for myself and, you know, for my family moving forward.
For sure. I mean, you're playing with Giannis Antetokounmpo, and you're literally in a position where you're going to be best suited. You get to space the floor. You have a defensive-minded team, defensive-minded coach, great leadership, and championship aspirations. I don't think anybody can knock you from making that decision.
Of course. I mean, that's the way I look at it personally. You know, moving forward, again, it just makes the Eastern Conference that much more fun, you know, the way I look at it.
Oh, for sure.
The NBA is so wildly different than every other sport where we as the media and the fans are so knowledgeable and spend so much time talking about the CBA, the salary cap, players' contracts. And with that conversation, us on the outside never saw Milwaukee as a possibility.
Right.
It never, like, they didn't have the space. They couldn't pay for a guy of your caliber. Were you as surprised as the rest of us when they reached out to you or your representatives?
Absolutely, I was. You know, just even the fact that they just showed the interest that they showed, and just they placed so much value in me, and just you know, trying to get out there and get aggressive to get me. And you know, I interpreted that, you know, it's in a great light. You know, just knowing that I'm wanted, and knowing that, you know, they see me as part of their foreseeable future. So yeah, you know, when I made the decision, you know, obviously it wasn't easy. I was a teenager in Indiana all the way up to now, 10 years of my life. But it's not a Cinderella story at the end of the day. You know, the way this industry goes.
You know, you and I spoke about this a lot during the course of the season, and you're always so generous with your time. You wrote, and if you haven't out there gotten the opportunity to read it, Myles wrote one of the best journal entries in the players only I've ever read in my life. It was completely honest, talking about your first 10 years in Indiana, and it was so transparent about what you had gone through and the dark times that come along with it. Dude, you were in trade rumors almost every year of your career.
Which is bad, but it's also kind of funny.
You know, it is what it is, man. You know, I had a max offer sheet, you know, signed right in front of my face. I mean, there's plenty of things that I went through, but, you know, I took it all on the chin, and I just continued to keep rolling. And, you know, again, this is the damned if I do, damned if I don't. You know, if I make a decision for myself, you know, it's best for me. There's going to be people that talk. If I make a decision to go back, there's going to be people that talk there, too. So, you know, I'm going into the prime of my career, you know, at this point.
And that leads me to the question, like, I had the first thought that came to my mind, just human nature, and I didn't have any inside intel, but like, you signed with Milwaukee, it's like, well, yeah, you guys have messed around for 10 years. You helped them get to the NBA Finals. You helped get to the NBA Cup Championship the year before. Like, you guys were building towards something special. Should there have been more of an outward commitment that Myles Turner is a part of our centerpiece moving forward?
You know, again, that's where I would like to, you know, what the sense of the been or what the value could have been. But again, I understand how the industry goes. You know, this is, you know, I'm playing for a team and ownership that, you know, didn't want to go into the tax, hadn't gone to tax in 20 years. And, you know, seeing that I'm going into my 30s, you know, that's one of the most lucrative contracts I signed in my career at that time. So I just decided you know, I had to do what I had to do.
We're going to go to break. You mind sticking around?
Absolutely.
All right, Myles Turner with us. More with him after the break. Cavs up big, 65-46. We'll come right back on NBA TV. Back live on NBA TV, Cavaliers and Bucks. It's been all Cleveland, 65-46. That's Channing Frye, the NBA champion. This guy who took the Pacers to the NBA finals this year. Myles Turner, now the newest member of the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm Jared Greenberg. We'll hear from Dennis Scott in a moment. Your teammates now with the best player in the Eastern Conference, one of the best players in the league, and Giannis. What have the conversations been like with him, and how much was Giannis a part of the recruiting process?
You know, we talked a little bit. You know, he's in Greece right now, and I was in Hawaii when we first talked, so it was real short. I do know that, you know, he expressed to the front office, it's like, you know, just the interest in playing with me and whatnot, and the interest is mutual. You know, I just think that as a front court, you know, I see the fit, you know, seamless, you know, me being able to space the floor, him getting downhill creating, and just, again, just being just the player that he is.
I think for me, my biggest question is about the finals. How was that experience for you? And then also, what is the biggest thing you learned from that and can take that to the Bucks?
Absolutely. Well, you just said it. It was the greatest learning experience of my life. You know, I realized that it's not just physical. You know, the toll is mental. The toll is emotional. You know, sleepless nights, all that type of stuff goes into it. Just how hard it is to win, bro, and how hard it is to be in that environment. But I mean, the biggest thing I learned is how bad I want to get back. Yeah. You know, to say the least. You know, you're playing. You're the only show on TV. You know, it just there's just an almighty purpose that comes with, you know, playing this time of the year.
Have you watched any of those games back from the finals?
Not necessarily. You know, I think, you know, once you go through that grind, it's just good to get away from the game for a little bit. You know, I was able to spend some time in Hawaii, and honestly, you know, life has just been moving so fast, you know, over the past couple of weeks now.
What's it like? You know, you're spent 10 years in Indiana, played with the Pacers, built an identity there. What's it going to be like with the relationship with those guys that you've built over the last several years?
You know, I don't think it's any love lost. Like, again, you know, when everything happened, I reached out, you know, to every one of my teammates. You know, we had our group message. You know, a few of the guys reached back. You know, I heard from a couple guys yesterday. So I think everybody's happy for me more than anything. You know, everybody knows how much, you know, I put into this, and how much, you know, I just really put my lifeblood into that Pacers organization. So, you know, if anything, I think it'll be received, you know, positively, but maybe not too positive from the fans. You know, it's just what it is.
What do you expect your first time back playing in Indiana?
I don't know what to expect, man. You know, I really don't. You know, I think it's going to be half and half. You know, there's even my time there was a lot of people that want to be off the team, and now they got what they wanted, and now they're complaining still. So, you know, again, you know, it's just part of it, man. And you know, on my end, you know, I'm always going to be a Hoosier, man. There's no love lost.
You spoke so much this year about what Rick Carlisle did for your game and the chemistry and relationship you built with him. How do you take what you learned about the coach-player dynamic and now transfer that to Doc Rivers?
Absolutely. You know, Rick's one of the, you know, if not the, like, you know, one of the best coaches I've had since I've been in this league, and he just really unlocked my game. And we have very similar mindsets, you know, when it comes to not even just game, but just life in general. So even just the conversation that we had, you know, I got a lot of love for him. You know, Lloyd Pierce, you know, Jenny Bouchers, Mike, you know, Jim Boylan, all those guys, man. They really helped me build something special this year. But, you know, moving into the Doc, you know, we've had some great conversation. You know, he's been through so much in this league, you know, as a man. You know, even I watched that clip series or whatever, like right before, you know, I came with Lawrence Fishburne or whatever, and we talked about that for a little bit, and stuff that went down there. But I think he has a vision for me, man, and you know, I think it's a seamless fit.
I think my last question, just about Indiana, was there one moment? Oh my goodness!
Big time rise and throwdown by Tristan Anaruna.
Was this run through your 10 years your all-time favorite memory of being a Pacer? Which is a tough question now to ask, but you guys had some runs.
Yeah,
obviously you ran into LeBron, Cavs, but you guys had some monster teams throughout your run in that time.
This has definitely been the most the most validating year I've had, but the most fun was probably about 2 years ago when we first started this. You know what I mean? All the guys, the Aaron Neesmiths of the world, the Nimhards, like all the guys that came to our team initially and what we were building, that was my best memory, just because of, you know, nobody saw us coming, and we built something from the ground up. Yeah. And, you know, once we got to, you know, we thought we could be competitive, you know, we just took off from there. So, you know, I think about 2 seasons ago is probably my favorite memory, if you will.
Looking ahead to your future here in Milwaukee, Giannis and the Bucks have had a lot of success with a pick-and-five, defensive-minded big in Brook Lopez, right? Yeah. He, like you, in the conversation for defensive, or you should be at times, in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. He's a guy that hit a lot of threes. Have you, or will you watch film of what made that relationship with Giannis and Brook and that dynamic? Do you look at that and try and figure out what worked to unlock some of that stuff?
Undoubtedly, man. You got to remember, we played these guys like 11 times in 1 year. I think it was last year. I've watched so much film on these guys, just how their offense opens up and whatnot. But yeah, you know, going into training camp and going into later half of the season, make sure you know, I do my homework. But, you know, again, I just think the things that me and Brooke did were very similar. And, you know, I can even think defensively, you know, I can help these guys, you know, being more up in the pick and roll, switching and whatnot, all that type of stuff.
And you and Brooke are pretty similar off the court too, right? You
Oh, very much so.
Superhero stuff. He likes all the different characters, and I mean, you're into Legos and.
Yeah, no, man, Brooke is a he's a character,
dude,
man. That's my dog right there, bro. Like we haven't kicked it too much off the floor, but even just the conversation we have on the floor, like he's cool, man. You know, we both are into, you know, pop culture and whatnot. You know, he's into the Star Wars, the Disney stuff. He's got plenty of Lego sets. I know he's built over the past 15 years from what I heard. So yeah, man, I think it's all in all, you know, it's just a good fit for me.
Will you try and get Giannis into the Legos?
I don't know, man. I feel like Giannis, he's a man of many. He's a modern renaissance man. He tries a lot of different things himself. So you know, we'll see what he's on.
The weight room, basketball, and candy. That's probably the only thing he does.
That sounds about right. Yeah, man.
Listen, you're going to hear a lot of questions
Absolutely.
about Giannis, right? One of the best players in the game. Like to not know whether there's a commitment about him being there long term. Is there any hesitation or trepidation about that?
Not necessarily, because I mean, I also looked at the way this roster was constructed too. You know, I just like first of all, I love how defensive-minded, you know, this team is, and it just, you know, translates into how I view the game as well. And then moving forward, man, I think that this team, like, they're so motivated. You know, I mean, it's, I mean, by our hand, you know, with the Pacers the past 2 years, they got bounced out in the first round. So now everybody wants to, you know, get back to that fold and go even higher. You know, you got guys like Bobby Portis, who, you know, I came into this league with mutual respect and a champion at that. So, you know, I got to that last game and didn't get the job done, and I just more motivated than ever, to say the least.
Basket doesn't count there. Got anything else, Jim?
No. My last question is, what are you going to take from
By the way,
last year?
don't trust him because he said that too quick.
Did I?
Run them off, bro. Run them off.
Okay, there we go. No, just now that you're on another team that has championship aspirations, what about what you learned this year can you take into next year for yourself throughout the long season?
You know, it's not even the stuff on the floor. It's really the basketball, the camaraderie, you know, off the floor and whatnot. That's what made us so successful in Indiana, is how much that we really rock with each other, how much we hung out off the floor, and just make sure everybody's on the same page here. You know, you got a decent mix of veterans and young guys on this team now, and whereas my last team was all young guys and maybe, you know, 2 or 3 veterans. So making sure we had that same mindset, you know, I just think that it's so important just to establish that so early in the season. So when you get to the postseason, you trust each other more. You know, you trust this person, you're willing to fight for this person more. You know what I mean? That type of stuff just goes to championship forwards. I know you know.
Yeah.
Do you have a Doc Rivers impersonation yet?
Not really, man. You know, my voice don't get that raspy yet.
You gotta try.
I haven't had one practice yet, so you know.
And the summer's a little different. It sounds a little bit better than it does in season.
Yeah, so I've heard. But you know, Doc's my guy, man. We've had mutual respect from afar in this league, you know, for these past few years. So I think it's gonna be good.
Well, Myles, we wish you huge congratulations and best of luck in Milwaukee. Enjoy it.
Sir.
Enjoy the time, and we look forward to chatting with you as you begin your tenure with the Bucks.
Oh, good. Appreciate you.
Myles Turner.
Jen, appreciate you.
Myles, by the way, Myles is buying us dinner tonight.
Is it?
I'm out of here, baby.
I'm expensive. You got that new money?